Only 8 movies in Metacritic's database boast a perfect Metascore of 100. Can you guess which ones they are? And how many have you seen? Behold cinematic perfection in this short list of flicks at the top of the heap. It's likely no surprise that Francis Ford Coppola's The Godfather, originally released in 1972, made this list, as it's one of the most acclaimed films of all time. It received 10 nominations at the 45th Academy Awards and won 3 of those, including Best Picture. Taking place in 1940s New York, the film stars Marlon Brando as the head of the Corleone Mafia family, and Al Pacino as Michael, the son who reluctantly gets drawn in to protect the family interests. The Washington Post praised the film's cinematography, calling it, quote, a great American picture full of incredible images and lasting moments. Based on a novel by Mario Puzo, The Godfather is also praised for the nuances and complexity of its characters and plot. Casablanca, another Best Picture winner, has become iconic in a multitude of ways since premiering in 1942. For example, it has some of the most referenced and recognizable lines of any film ever.
Of all the gin joints in all the towns in all the world, she walks into mine.
He's looking at you, kid.
I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship.
Humphrey Bogart plays an American named Rick living in Casablanca, Morocco during World War II. He unexpectedly crosses paths with his old flame, played by Ingrid Bergman, as well as her husband, played by Paul Henreid, who is a resistance leader wanted by the Nazis. Rick must decide whether to help them escape from Casablanca. Time magazine went as far as to call it the best movie of all time, citing, well, every detail. No other moving picture has surpassed its inspired mix of writing, acting, atmosphere, romance, intrigue, and finally, its absolutely sublime pacing.
But what about us?
We'll always have Paris.
Rear Window didn't actually win any of its 4 Oscar nominations, but it's often included on lists of the best films of all time, including AFI's 100 Years, 100 Movies. One of acclaimed filmmaker Alfred Hitchcock's dozens of directorial credits, Rear Window follows Jimmy Stewart's newspaper photographer who, while spying on his neighbors to pass the time, believes he witnesses a murder and decides to try and solve the crime himself. At the time of Rear Window's premiere in 1954, the Boston Globe wrote, "The story is told with tricks and intricate technique, but the mystery magician, Mr. Hitchcock, never forgets that what people want most is a spine-chilling climax." Other critics lauded the film's writing and acting as well, so no matter why you watch films, the verdict is clear. Rear Window is a must-see. Richard Linklater's Boyhood, released in 2014, is the only film from the 21st century with a perfect Metacritic score, garnering global acclaim, including the Silver Bear for Best Director at the Berlin International Film Festival. The film was shot over a 12-year span beginning in 2001 in order to depict a hyper-realistic portrayal of growing up. Eller Coltrane plays the film's protagonist Mason through the ages of 6 to 18. The plot points consist largely of seemingly mundane moments between Mason and his family, including his divorced parents, played by Ethan Hawke and Patricia Arquette, who won the Best Supporting Actress Oscar for the role. Critics across the board agree with the merit of this film's foundational ambition of following the same actors for over a decade to bring out the most authenticity for the story. Entertainment Weekly compared the result of this process to, quote, watching a photograph as it develops in the darkroom. When Alfred Hitchcock's Vertigo premiered in 1958, it wasn't a box office hit and it only received mixed reviews. So how does it rate a perfect score? Well, the film has become so revered in the decades since its release that many media outlets have been forced to reevaluate it with new reviews to correct their old mistakes. The Guardian, for example, argues that initial criticisms of the film, which complained about slow pace and conservative camera work, were missing the point, as the movie uses those virtues to be, quote, quietly, calmly efficient in establishing character, atmosphere, and uncertainty. Another early criticism claimed the film was overly complex without payoff, but a more recent evaluation from The New Yorker interprets it as a, quote, audaciously intricate melodrama. Fittingly, for a film that deals with a fear of heights, Vertigo took time reaching its lofty critical perch, but there's no denying it's deserved. Three Colors Red is the final installment of Polish filmmaker Krzysztof Kieślowski's trilogy following Blue and White. It's also the only international film on Metacritic's list of perfect metascores, as each of the trilogy's chapters explores the French revolutionary ideals of liberty, equality, and fraternity. Red depicts fraternity, as Irene Jacob and Jean-Louis Trintignant play mismatched characters who form an unlikely friendship after some initial animosity. Many critics point to the lingering emotion the film exudes, with Variety calling it, quote, deeply affecting. Meanwhile, Time Out gave a glowing review, defining the film as a masterpiece and stating, stunningly beautiful, powerfully scored, and immaculately performed, the film is virtually flawless, and one of the very greatest cinematic achievements of the last few decades. Notorious, yet another Hitchcock classic, came out in 1946 to rave reviews. It landed Claude Rains an Oscar nomination for Best Actor in a Supporting Role and Ben Hecht a nod for Best Original Screenplay. Cary Grant plays T.R. Devlin, a government agent who asks Ingrid Bergman's Alicia to spy on a group of Nazis in Brazil by winning the affections of Alexander, played by Rains. When an unexpected love triangle develops between the three, though, things get very complicated very quickly. Once again, Hitchcock was universally praised, with the Chicago Reader stating, "The virtuoso sequences, the long kiss, the crane shot into the door key are justly famous. Yet the film's real brilliance is in its subtle and detailed portrayal of infinitely perverse relationships." Of the 8 films with perfect Metacritic scores, Citizen Kane may be the least surprising, as it's widely considered the greatest film ever made and the crowning artistic achievement for Orson Welles, who co-wrote, produced, directed, and starred. The bulk of the praise for Citizen Kane is understandably focused on Welles, with many critics bringing attention to his young age. He was merely 25 during the making of the film. The Hollywood Reporter wrote of Welles as an actor, stating that Welles' performance is nothing less than astonishing. He begins as a youth of 21, goes through middle age to his death, and makes every moment believable in voice, walk, and gesture. It's a much better review than the critics in the film are giving themselves.
Overacting it is absolutely impossible to say anything except that, in the opinion of this reviewer, it represents a new low.
Additionally, the film has been praised for its groundbreaking cinematography and film techniques, which revolutionized how films were made and experienced. And critics have also added that, as a character study, it is, quote, rarely if ever equaled. Needless to say, if you're a film fan and you haven't seen Citizen Kane yet, it needs to be in your queue. Check out one of our newest videos right here. Plus, even more Looper videos about your favorite stuff are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.